You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch TV about New Jersey. I'm Jody.
And I'm Andrea. And this season, we're talking about the Showtime series Yellowjackets. Today, we're recapping Season 2, Episode 3, Digestif.
Andrea, have you ever been to Colonial Williamsburg? Have you ever churned butter?
I thought you were going to ask if I'd ever peeled the skin off a human corpse.
God.
And I'll tell you what. You asked three questions. Well, you asked two questions. But I'll tell you that the answer to some of those is yes.
It's the butter churning, right? Not the skin peeling?
Not the skin peeling. I have been to Colonial Williamsburg. I have churned butter, though not at Colonial Williamsburg.
Just at home.
That's what we do in South Jersey. No, there's a place. This is why. So if we are building a case for where these girls are from, I think mostly it points toward North Jersey. And we'll get into the recap.
Sure.
But
they're from the shore.
Do you have anywhere? Oh, yeah, they're definitely an Eastern Jersey. No, but
we do not have anywhere to churn butter in northern New Jersey that I know of.
In South Jersey, there's a place, I don't even know if it's still open, but it's called Old Stonehouse Village.
Okay.
And it is where I went in first grade and churned butter and made paper, and we made sun tea and pickles.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like a very sweet, like quaint.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what you guys think, what North Jersey just thinks South Jersey does generally, but it was a field trip. We
had Wild West City where they would have gun duels in the streets.
Have you ever been to Wild West City?
Yeah, we went on school trips. We went to Wild West City when I was in elementary school. We went to Wild West City and we went to Space Farms.
I didn't know anything about either of those places until I started, consorting with North Jersey folk. The fact that Wild West City is a real thing and still exists, I'm pretty sure, is unbelievable.
Yeah, and they would have, your little class of 8-year-olds come and watch people dueling in the street.
What did you learn?
Fake guns. I don't think anything. What would we possibly learned? I just remember it being very, very dusty.
That's what I picture.
Yeah, and that we could get out of school for the day.
I mean, well, that's pretty good. I have a friend who is from Tuckerton, and they are of the belief that, did you know Tuckerton, first of all, is a place in New Jersey, Jody?
Sure.
And Tuckerton is southeast Jersey, big time. So it would fit the shore. It's not a shore town, but it's much closer to the shore. But it fits both of our arguments. The only thing that I can't reconcile is if those girls are from Tuckerton, they have seen Cedarwater before.
Yeah, I'm convinced they're
point for me.
Right near Asbury. I just think they're somewhere near the shore, but not like Belmar, Point Pleasant, shore town. They're a little bit inland.
That makes sense to me. I buy it.
That's my guess. Should we talk about the show?
I mean, I guess. We could also just talk about
the episode.
Tiny towns in New Jersey.
I mean, I could talk about Wild West City for a long time. They have panning for gold. I'm looking on the website. You can pan for gold. So I think what we're going to do this time is what we did last time, which seemed to work well. We are going to start with 96, talk through what happened in 1996, and then jump to 2021. And separate them from each other because it just seems to flow better and be less confusing.
And I don't remember, because I watched all of season 1 so quickly, I don't, pacing is hard for me to really remember, but it feels like this season has really slowed down quite a bit in terms of just the progression of time. And so we really only, even though they're broken up into quite a few scenes, there are really only a few moments in both 96 and 2021. So to hop back and forth is really chopping it up for the purposes of our conversation.
I also, though, think, I'm not sure. I know I've seen the comments about how this season is slower. This episode in particular, people were saying nothing happened. They just ate people. I needed a break. I'm happy. I was so happy to have an episode to just hang out with Misty and Walter, to have a baby shower, I needed it. So I understand if people are unhappy, but it was what I needed personally.
I think there's plenty to sink our proverbial teeth into here. I think this episode gave us a ton. I saw a few people who were really angry and like thought it was a waste of time and said nothing happened.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what this is here. And I'm also thinking like, in terms of the mystery and stuff of this show, and mystery is not even really the right word at this point, I don't think, but the kind of questions that it's raising for us, how much can we be expected for them to give us 3 episodes into the second season of what we think is going to be a 5-season?
Right. Because like we said last time, like we didn't think we were going to get to the cannibalism this fast.
Right.
And now that we're there, like I'm just happy to have a quieter episode that allows us to kind of see a little bit of the aftermath, to get to know some people a little bit better. So I really enjoyed it. I like was gleeful at certain moments for some, you know.
I love this episode.
Yeah, I did too. Should we start with the beginning?
Yeah.
So we open on a really disgusting shot of Jackie's hand.
What's left of it.
Dripping. That dripping thing it comes up a number of times in this show this time around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it starts right here in the first scene because her hand is literally dripping. It's disgusting. And we're kind of seeing how bad off Ben actually is right from the beginning. This episode didn't have some of the same visual effects that I kind of complained about last time. The only thing it really has is this like VCR glitch that they do every time Ben is like kind of mentally jumping back and forth between the present and the past. And this is going on over images that Ben is kind of reliving of them eating Jackie.
Ben hasn't been doing well for quite a while, and what happened last night in this show, in the timeline of the show, really seems to have pushed him over the edge where he was like teetering in the first place or already.
Yeah. I saw, I think it was the actor was saying that I saw an interview with him where he said that thinking about why he didn't partake, right? We can assume, the horror of seeing that happening. He was slower to get out to the body. So like everybody had dove in and he like was horrified by it. But what he said, which I thought was super interesting, was one of the reasons that to him, Ben didn't partake is because he was thinking about what would happen if they got rescued.
Right.
And the accountability of it all and how if he had partaken, it would be even worse for him as the only adult there.
Right.
Like it's one thing to kind of lose control over the group and they go nuts and do this. But if he's also doing it, it's sort of like there's a part of him that's like, if we ever get rescued, I'm going to have to explain what happened because I'm the only adult.
Well, and we know that he's thinking about that because he comments on it a little later when they talk about moving Jackie's bones, which we'll get to in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when we see how hopeless he seems to be, but that part of him is also still thinking about rescue. That's interesting. It seems to me like he's really given up otherwise.
It does seem like that. I mean, he barely moves this whole episode. Like he goes outside briefly, but most of the time is spent in bed, kind of flashing back to, before they left for the tournament. So we get to meet Paul. We get to see Ben and his boyfriend. And I would like to quote a text message that I got from you.
I don't remember what I said.
Yesterday, when you started to watch, I got a text that said, "I'm going in." And then the very first text after that is Ben and Paul looking like my two dads.
They really
did. Like that 90s hair that's like almost a mullet, but not quite.
Ben has perfect 90s face.
Yes. And hair.
I mean, the hair is a big part of why his face looks so 90s, but he's perfect.
They're listening to 10,000 Maniacs.
Yeah, we talked about 10,000 Maniacs when you were on Left to the Dial last week.
Yeah, I know. That reminded me of that.
I was thinking about the lyrics to that song, and it's a very warm, like, positive song if you think about it through any filter other than a show like this. Because it's one of the lines in it is you see the signs and know their meaning. It's true. You'll know how it was meant to be. Hear the signs and know they're speaking to you.
Right. And in the song, it's so cheerful and sweet. Yeah. And it does not feel that way through the lens of this show.
It's true that you are touched by something that will grow and bloom in you.
Oh, Lord.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's just such a sweet scene. So, like, Paul is cooking soup for the chowder bake-off.
It's a chowder fest.
The chowder
it's not a cook-off, it's a chowder fest.
Right. The chowder fest. I very much related to Paul in this moment. He said, if I could relax about anything ever, I promise you I would. And then Ben says he minored in chillaxing.
He minored in chillaxing. And he says it pretty genuinely.
It's so cute.
They're
just nerds.
Yeah, they're an immediately likable couple. Paul, I found him very endearing just out the gate. Very stressed about the chowder that does not have cumin.
It also did not look like chowder. It looked like chicken soup.
Well,
I live in New England now. That's not chowder.
What color is your chowder? Is it the white chowder in New England?
Rhode Island is its own weird thing.
Oh,
it's neither. Don't ask. It's gross.
What other color?
It's clear. Oh. Look it up after this. It's awful.
It's clear?
I prefer the New England clam chowder, but that was not chowder regardless, unless maybe he's from Rhode Island and it was some weird Rhode Island chowder, but it looked like chicken soup, which threw me off for a second.
Oh, Jody, this looks bad.
I know. There's some things you don't need to reinvent.
Sorry to Rhode Island, but this looks bad.
Yeah, no, Rhode Island's got a lot of good stuff. That's not one of them. Anyway, so we're getting these flashes of Ben's past. This very like beautiful, nostalgic scene. They're in Paul's loft apartment in New York City. It seems very nice apartment for New York.
We don't know what Paul does for a living.
He's a writer.
Oh, that's right. He's a writer in New York. We don't know what kind of writing. That could mean anything.
Yeah. And, you know, if it's 96...
That's true, too.
Apartments in New York were a hell of a lot cheaper then. Not cheap, but they were definitely more affordable in some neighborhoods.
Who knows what borough.
Right. It's flashing back and forth between Ben and then Ben on the bed and then Jackie's hand still dripping, which is really unpleasant.
It's the first... So then the first, like... real like thing that happens in 96 in the wilderness is Ty comes outside, and as we all thought, Ty was not present. Other Ty was there for dinner last night.
Yep. Yeah, Nat's on the porch, and Ty comes out and is like starts yelling about what happened to Jackie. But yeah, so Van says, you were sitting right next to me. And talking to... So this is the thing I think that's interesting about this. We have been seeing Ty, quote unquote, sleepwalking. Right? But not speaking to anyone, really. Right. In this episode, suddenly we see she's talking. She's a full other person, not just Ty asleep.
Right.
In this moment.
Ty not being present for the eating is hard for Ty. But it also means that Nat and Van have to address it because they have to tell Ty what happened. Like everybody's being kind of like quiet around it. And obviously you don't want to revisit what happened that night, but they have to because of this.
Yeah. She ate her face.
You ate her face.
Such a brutal line by Van.
Well, and it also speaks to like we're afraid of other Ty, and in 2021 we have good reason for it. She killed a dog. We know lots about what this looks like for Ty in her future, but this is the first that's the first really kind of like violent thing we see of her in the past, I think.
Yeah, I mean, she like bit Van while they were like kissing that one time.
Oh, right.
That's not eating a whole person, and that's not a long like. That went on for such a long time too. Like it just, that felt like a line being crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way. So then Ty throws up and screams and is seriously distressed by this, which understandable.
Yeah.
And then we get the intro, and then they're folding up the bedding inside. Mari says, "Oh, I guess no one wants breakfast."
I know that she's not doing much to like keep friends there, but I really like her.
I know.
don't know.
This episode, I really enjoyed her. She had some fun lines. She's a little bit of a weirdo, which I appreciate.
But yeah, I think that's when Nat suggests that they move Jackie's body, right?
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, nobody wants to stare at it and you can't bury it yet. So I guess it's logical to bring it back to the plane where the other bodies are.
Exactly. And as Ben points out, then it'll be, I forget what he says exactly, but...
Yeah, he says it will look like she died with the rest of them.
Right.
Yeah, and Travis rolls his eyes at that. I also noticed that Nat checked with Shauna before she did that, just to see, like, Shauna has the ownership of this whole situation. So she starts packing up Jackie's remains. But Lottie comes out and is trying to be her reassuring Lottie, spiritual guide. Nat is not having it.
Well, and it's not just that Nat isn't having it for Nat's sake. It seems like already Nat, because Lottie says, like, I just want you to be safe. And Nat seems to not believe that. It's not just that Nat's like, Lottie wants me to be safe, but I think it's bullshit. I think the whole thing is bullshit. I don't think she trusts that Lottie's being genuine with this.
Yeah, no, she even kind of like shuns Travis in this moment. He offers to go with her and she's like, no, I'm fine on my own.
Well, here's the thing about that. And this is just a little bit of communication advice for our listeners. If you ask somebody a yes or no question and they don't respond with a yes or no answer, that you can't you have to think a little more, because what she says is, I'm fine on my own, or I'm fine alone, which might be true, but that's not the answer to, do you want me to come with you? Because of course, Travis, she wants you to go with her.
I don't know. She seems real frustrated with everyone, though.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I would bet even more so now that Travis stayed back with Lottie.
Yeah. So she grabs the gun and gives them a last look and marches off to the plane. And then we see Shauna watching from inside the window of the cabin. Lottie comes in and stands with Shauna by the window and in referring to the night before, says it's what Jackie would have wanted.
Yeah, maybe not for all of us, but for you and the baby.
Yeah.
It's funny that Lottie's kind of making the rounds, like trying to find somebody who will like buy her shit, it seems like.
Yeah, and being like the reassuring, trying to do her like, it's going to be okay. We did what we had to do, like all of that. But Shauna's still fucked up about it, it seems. She says she's scared. She doesn't know what's going to happen next, which I think is an interesting parallel to in 2021 later on, when Shauna is saying like she liked having the affair with Adam because it meant she didn't know what was going to happen next.
Yeah, that's a really good a good point.
But she said she's going to be a great mom, and that's when she says they should welcome him, which could be a boy baby or could be some other entity.
Oh, wow.
Should welcome him.
Yeah.
But then Mari asks if they're having a baby shower, and it's like they kind of get excited for something to do.
It's very sweet. It is just that little moment where they all kind of like perk up the littlest bit and
gather around the table.
Yeah.
To start planning.
My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, so they get together, they start to plan, they start making presents for Shauna.
Ty and Akil and make a bassinet, which is very sweet. They have a little moment.
Yeah, I know. Akila talks about missing her nephew, and she says that she'd do anything to see him again, which I think just kind of gives us a sense of some people are still desperate to leave.
Right.
Seems like others are kind of have accepted that this is life now, but that was an interesting reminder to me that like the Yellowjackets we've seen most at this point, I know they haven't really, but it seems like they've accepted that this is their new civilization.
Right.
In a way. And Akila's this reminder of like, no, I want to go home, guys. I've got family. So. Yeah,
I wonder how many people are thinking like we just have to hunker down and wait through winter. And when things, get, I don't know how much warmer they get, but yeah. Who do you think you would be? Do you think you'd be?
I would be dead already.
Yeah, probably same. Yeah, I don't know who I think. I'm kidding. I'd be Jackie. I'd get annoyed at somebody. I'd do something stubborn.
Yeah. I would. I do think I would be useful in some way. Like I do have some outdoor experience. I do know how to like sew and make things, and like I could be helpful in some way, but I
I believe that.
don't think I have the diplomatic personality needed to survive in that situation.
Yeah.
I think I
I'm
would
with
be
you.
Mari. Like, I think I would be like snapping at people and like making. I love that she makes the creepy like mobile that has the spike on it. I know. Little hint of Pit Girl there, but like, yeah. And Van says, "Great, the baby can dream about being stabbed to death." I tell you, I needed the levity of this episode. I needed the levity of this. And this is where Mari asks if they hear the dripping. So we saw the dripping at the beginning with the hand. We see it again a couple more times, other things dripping throughout the episode. But Mari is hearing something that no one else is hearing.
Right. And seems to have been hearing it for a little while, enough that she's clearly brought it up to them more than once at this point.
Yeah. Lottie is embroidering a blanket with the symbol, which seems like a questionable choice. And Misty and Crystal are sitting together, making presents and chatting, just being Misty and Crystal.
Yeah, I really like this friendship.
Me too.
These two strange little creatures becoming friends.
Yeah.
That's Crystal says that this isn't the first person she's eaten because she absorbed her twin in the womb.
I died. I died.
Perfect.
She looks so delighted with herself too.
Well, she's clearly so happy to have somebody who she knew she could say that to, who wouldn't just be horrified.
Yeah, and they're like giggling together about it. This was after Misty says that the only baby shower she's been to, she ate a dozen deviled eggs. Or a whole tray of deviled eggs.
A whole tray of deviled eggs. She says eggs.
Eggs. But then we also hear Crystal say that it's too bad they didn't listen to your broth idea.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that like Misty suggested making like a Jackie E. bone broth.
Like a bone broth. It's all the rage now. I don't know if it was in the 90s, but
I know. Well, if Gwyneth Paltrow was in the woods, she would know. You can't waste that bone broth.
I mean, it's gruesome, but it's also not for nothing. It's not
it's practical.
Yeah, exactly.
It's practical.
What can you do?
I mentioned the show Alone last week, and those folks would never have let the bones go to waste.
Right, exactly.
But it seems like they're both kind of the mind that what they did maybe wasn't so bad. Misty doesn't seem to have the same guilt that the rest of them have.
Right.
Neither does Crystal.
Yeah. Which is a through line with Misty in general. That's not... I kind of like that Misty came to the wilderness fully formed as the Misty that we know now.
Yeah. No real regrets there. Everyone else is sort of like processing and looking like they've been, their lives have been forever changed. Yeah. And Misty's like, we kind of wasted those bones though, guys. Like, is it too late to go get Nat? So then Ben comes in from outside and we hear his stomach growling, which reminds us again that he is very, very hungry and did not partake. And this is where we see, so there was all this speculation about Jen having rabies. It was a hallucination.
Which is a dirty trick on the show's part. But yeah, so Ben's hallucinating.
Yeah. In his hallucination, Jen asks if he's hungry and she like goes to attack him. But we get that same like VCR skipping thing again. And that's sort of our hint that we're going back to Ben and Paul's apartment. And we find out that Paul wants Ben to move in with him.
Oh, but Ben isn't ready.
Yeah, so Ben is hesitating to move in, which, it's 1996.
Yeah.
He says, moving in with you means everything in my life changes. And I think that the people that found these scenes maybe less interesting are also maybe people that weren't queer in the 80s and 90s. Right. Because to me, this was like so sad and also just so like on the nose for the moment. Like Ben is a high school soccer coach.
That's the thing that I think is, it's not just that he's a gay man in the mid 90s. He's a teacher. And even when I was in high school, like there were a couple of teachers who we all knew were gay, but they never talked about it. They never
Yeah, I mean, I graduated high school in 93. There were no out people in my school. There were no out teachers. It would not have surprised anyone if someone lost their job for being gay.
Exactly.
And so it is not, it's a much bigger deal, I think, then than we're used to thinking about it now.
Right. And I know, even to say that, I know there are lots of places where it's still not necessarily.
Not great.
Yeah. But I
now
think
it's not great.
But then to consider what.
Yeah, I mean, this is way before marriage equality. This is like still in Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Like,
exactly.
This is a very different time. This is just post the AIDS epidemic.
Right.
Thinking about what it actually would have been like for two gay men, one working in a high school in New Jersey at that time, it's a very specific experience. And I'm really glad we got to see even a little bit of what it actually would have been like.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see this is kind of when they break up, it seems like, because Paul says, I love you, but you need to leave. I'm ready for someone that wants to live this life with me. And
which again is really heartbreaking, but understandable. Like he doesn't come across as cruel or anything in this scene.
No, not at all. It's very, they clearly both like love each other, but are just at two different places in their willingness to be public about it, which is understandable.
And then I think it's right after that Nat gets to the plane, right?
Yep.
It is so beautiful out there. I know that's not the point, but these outdoor shots are unreal.
Yeah. I was watching this on a slightly different television than the last time, and I kept pausing to like admire the set dressing.
Yeah.
Just the outdoor scenes and even in the plane. Like just the way that it's the detail that they have, put into it is so elaborate. But she goes in, brings in Jackie's remains and talks to her, which I thought was interesting. She talks to her, it seems like, almost more than Shauna did.
Yeah, not more than Shauna did in the meat shed, but in terms of saying goodbye, in terms of her like little eulogy before they. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we get a little foreshadowing. She says, "You're lucky. I think shit is going to get a lot worse out here, but you're already dead. So way to make everyone jealous of you one last time."
Which is like kind of, it like comes across kind of sweet. It's like, like, I don't know, all of these girls were friends, and you can feel that sometimes still with stuff like that.
Which is interesting because Nat and Jackie were not on good terms before any of this happened. Like Jackie had just slept with Travis and like,
oh my God, that's right.
Told Travis that Nat had slept with Bobby, what's his face, and so they were not on good terms. But Nat has this like humanity to her that I don't think we see. We see the others kind of losing as they're out there for a long period of time. But she says, "I'm sorry for what we did. Who knows? Eating you could be the reason we survived the winter. So thanks."
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Jackie.
Rest in peace, Jackie.
Yeah. And then she hears a sound and then looks out the door and sees the white moose.
This beautiful,
gorgeous,
like, moose that looks like something out of fucking Narnia. Like, I was ready for him to start talking to her.
It's Tumnus. I know that moose are huge, and so it was like I saw people saying like, why was it so big? Moose are that big
because they're fucking huge.
They're like larger than cars.
Yeah.
They're enormous. So she grabs the gun and tries to shoot the moose and misses.
All she does is piss it off.
Yeah, and then it charges the plane, but its antlers stop it from actually getting in. And by the time she grabs the gun again, the moose is gone. And I wrote down, was the moose actually there? Which, like, I think it was.
I do too, but what do we make of it then? Because here's what I thought was going to happen. First, I thought she's going to kill the moose and they're going to have even more food.
Yeah.
And it's like Jackie led them to this.
Right.
And then I was
like... Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Right? And then I was like, oh, the moose like dislodged something with the plane and it's going to shift and something is going to happen because of that. I don't know if it's going to reveal a secret hatch underneath the plane or what, but none of that happened.
We love a hatch.
Love a hatch. It was a strange little scene. I don't know what to make of it yet.
I know. I feel like I think it's one of those scenes that maybe fit into the reason that people have been saying that not a lot happened in this episode. Like, okay, so Nat brought Jackie's remains to the plane, saw a moose, didn't hit the moose. I think something in that scene is coming back, though.
Right.
Like, I don't think that was for nothing. And then we see Christy. No.
That's their couple name. It's like Bennifer, Christy.
Yeah, Christy. So we see Christy under the sheet by firelight.
In a little fort.
It's so cute.
It's so cute.
Yeah. They're going over Misty's plan for Shauna's baby shower.
Uh-huh. Now that she's got an acting coach.
Yeah. Crystal's being her acting coach, which is adorable. And Van is watching Ty sleep, trying to stay awake and failing. This scene is so interesting. This is where we see that quote unquote bad Ty talks.
Yep.
And communicates and can be asked questions and responds.
And thinks of herself as separate from Ty.
Fully separate, yeah. Bad Ty wakes up Van, and Van decides to interact and says, like, if I let you loose, can I come with you? And Ty says yes.
She says it like, yes, come. It sounds like she's being fed lines from somebody else.
Yeah. So they go running off through the woods. Van is chasing Ty, asking her questions the whole way. She says, how do you know where you're going? And Ty says, he shows me. Van says, who? And Ty says, the one with no eyes. Van says, is he who you always follow? And then Ty says, only when she lets me. And then Van says, who is she? And
she's like, am I she?
Yeah. And she says, Thaisa. And she says, then who are you? And then no answer.
You're right.
No answer.
Fascinating. If nothing else happened in this episode except for this scene, I would have been fine. There's so much here.
The fact that you can talk to Bad Ty is like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And then the symbol, Ty has taken them right to the symbol on the tree.
Is this the same tree that overlooks the precipice from last week's episode?
I don't think so. It didn't look like it. So it looked like it was more in the middle of the woods, not on a cliff.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But then I'm like, so it's not just because. So then Ty wakes up and Van says, you led us right here. Like you knew where you were going. I don't remember the exact quote. But so it's not just that like, well, yeah, because she keeps coming out to this one symbol over by the cliff every night. It's like she has knowledge of where these symbols are. It seems that's how it's being presented.
No, totally. So then we flip back to sad. We flip back to our last scene in Ben and Paul's lives together for the moment anyway. This is Ben imagining if he hadn't gone.
Right. Which we don't realize. Well, we don't really realize until the last couple of seconds, but it seems a little because he comes like running into the apartment and he's all excited because he's decided. He's like, I packed my bag. I was on my way to the airport and I realized like that's not what I want. Like I can't, keep making the safe choice basically.
Right. He's like wearing the Yellowjackets sweatshirt when they're talking. I
would pay so much. That sweatshirt is perfect. I want it so bad.
It's great.
It's really great.
Although I kind of want the we'll talk about it later. The one that Jeff is wearing at the gym.
His old high school hoodie.
His baseball one, yeah. With the sleeves cut off. Oh, it's so good. But this is like hard to talk about. It really was like emotional because he says, if I got on that plane, I was committing to the saddest possible version of me. A fucking closeted high school soccer coach who ignores everything he wants because he thinks it will, I don't know, keep him safe. And then he says, there is no safe. And it's just like...
Which he knows now in hindsight, obviously, because it's like he got on that plane and was kind of punished for it in this really brutal way.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, like we just were talking about, like, there is a lot to be said for staying safe, especially at that time. Nobody would blame you for wanting to stay hidden in that time.
And how fucked up for him in his head to be thinking about all of it, but he's thinking about this the day after he watched a bunch of those vicious little monsters, as he has called them, to Paul, tear apart a corpse. And I don't know. That's tough.
And so Paul looks like he's about to cry. it's clear that this would have been, at least in his imagination, a happy reunion. And then we flash back to Ben at the cabin looking almost comatose.
Yeah.
But then we also see in the apartment on the TV the news report about the crash. And that's how we learn that it is actually a hallucination.
Or could be a flash sideways, and maybe we're just getting ready for
sliding doors.
We're doing a lost time travel situation, and maybe this is just this alternate sideways timeline that we
I can't handle that. I'm sorry, that's not allowed.
Just because they haven't introduced time travel doesn't mean they
aren't
going to.
I can't do it. I can't. It's too much. It's too much.
I believe in my heart this show is not going to do that kind of thing to us.
No, I don't think so either.
It's showing us more and more stuff that it's hard to not see as, in some way, supernatural isn't quite the right word that I want to use, but like other natural or something. I don't know. But I still don't think we're gonna. I trust this show. I trust this show.
And also, even like the things that are the hardest to explain to me are Lottie's visions. But everything else so far that has happened could have a scientific explanation. And I do appreciate that they're not closing the door to either right now, because I do think that there are people who want it to be supernatural and there's people who don't. And then there's like the in-between people that would prefer it kind of stays ambiguous. And you don't really want to lose any of those groups of people if you can avoid it.
Exactly.
So then the last thing we see from that scene is Ben sitting in the cabin doorway and crying. And it is just... It's so rough.
He really breaks my heart, this poor guy. I wasn't sure whether what my gut was telling me about Ben up until this week. And I think we've all... I don't know that there are too many people who think Ben's going to make it back.
I know.
My feeling is that he's going to let himself... He'll let himself seems unkind. I think we're watching Ben waste away. And I just wouldn't be surprised if that's... how he goes.
I mean, we'll see a little bit later the birds. That may be a food source for the moment. That might help him some. But
if he's, I wouldn't be totally surprised if even with the new food source, if Ben just decides he's kind of done trying to hang on here.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the chance that people smarter than me have said that it's possible that he could be septic from his injury. Apparently that can take a long time to actually get really bad. He looks very ill.
Oh, he does seem, very unwell. I didn't realize, I've always thought, I'm obviously not a medical professional. I've always thought of sepsis. That's always been a real fear of mine. I have like a real, like genuine fear of sepsis.
It's a very specific fear.
Yeah, but I'm one of those people. This isn't a kind of person. But like when I was younger, if I would get a bug bite that didn't look right or something, I would draw a circle around it. Because have you heard, about like blood infections, you're supposed to be able to see a line.
Yes,
and if it gets to your heart,
do know that.
If it gets to your heart, you die. So,
I'm also a hypochondriac, so.
Excuse me. I didn't say I was. I'm just drawing circles on my body to track possible. But I always thought of that as something really fast acting. So that's actually reassuring for me.
Yeah,
just
at least
on
that's
a personal level.
Who knows if the people on Reddit that say they know these things actually do know these things. But
they have Misty there, and she was taking care of it, and she took the Red Cross babysitting course twice. So I don't.
Sure.
He's fine.
Put all of our faith in Misty. So yeah, either way, not doing great. But then we get the baby shower, which I will say I watched this for the first time at 12:30-ish in the morning when it was released. I had too much coffee earlier in the day. And I was like, I'm just going to stay up and watch it. But I did take my melatonin and then watch it. I giggled like a small child during this scene. Because A, I was on melatonin, and B, it was just so funny. It was just delightful.
So deranged. I love it. It's so it's so sweet, and it's so dark, and it's they're little gifts. Yeah. Van's little, what is it? PTP or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, for if it's a boy. And then Misty stands and says, "For my gift, I'd like to perform a monologue from Steel Magnolias." She recites the scene
she does a great job.
She does a good job where Sally Field is talking about her daughter Shelby's death. And Ty's like, she's doing the dead daughter scene? Like,
and who says, were you surprised?
Yeah, I think it was Van. Travis looks completely freaked out and gets up and walks away.
The way he does, like, he's not actually slowly backing out, but he like might as well be. He's
Homer into the bush.
Exactly. He tries to go commiserate with Ben, but
Ben is not available.
At
the moment. He says, "This has to be the weirdest baby shower ever. You okay, man? You seem weird. Like, seem weird? He's dying."
Yeah,
Travis.
Again, the guys in the show.
Yeah. But everybody is eventually moved. They start by laughing at Misty, and eventually they get really emotionally involved and into it. And the only one who seems to look kind of skeptical is Shauna. She looks a little like, what the fuck are you doing?
What are we doing? Which is fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody, I love.
They're welling up with tears.
Because she does kind of crush it.
Yeah. She doesn't do a bad job.
No, these scenes in shows and movies and whatever like this are always my favorite. Like Lost, when they spend the whole episode trying to get the van running, and they finally do, or when they build the little golf course on the island. Anytime where it's like the group like in the face of really dark, horrific times finding a little bit of joy. I'm such a sucker for that stuff.
No, I loved it. I loved it so much. And the fact that she was actually good and that everybody started by laughing at her and eventually were like crying, I thought was fantastic. You asked me a fun question though, and I want to put it to you also. So if it wasn't Steel Magnolias, right? What other monologue would we want to see Misty perform in that moment from a 90s movie?
So I have one. I don't know. I was trying to think of like, not necessarily ones that I'd want her to, but are there others that are as inappropriate or as, and either way, like whatever, that's kind of how I took it. And the one I keep laughing at thinking about her doing is Christopher Walken's monologue from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
When he brings
the
his
watch
to spin in his ass and his her just very seriously like doing a Walken impression. I could just see her getting really serious about it.
So we took this in somewhat similar directions, I think. I had two. The first one was Ray Liotta's opening monologue in Goodfellas, where he starts off by saying, "As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster."
Also very good. Very good.
To me, being a gangster is better than being president of the United States. Yeah. So there was that one. And then the other one, you still haven't watched Heathers, right?
No, I've never seen Heathers.
Yeah, I'm assigning you that.
Okay.
As your faculty member.
You got it.
You have to watch it. But there's two great scenes in that one. One by Veronica, who's played by Winona Ryder, and one by the main Heather in the movie, which was quoted incessantly by everyone I know in high school. Heather says, "You were nothing before you met me. You were playing Barbies with Betty Finn. You were a brownie. You were a bluebird. You were a Girl Scout cookie. I got you into a Remington party. What's my thanks? It's on the hallway carpet. I got paid in puke. Monday morning, your history. I'll tell everyone about tonight. Transfer to Washington. Transfer to Jefferson. No one at Westerberg's going to let you play their reindeer games." It's fucking legendary, that scene. I love it very much.
I'm absolutely going to watch that movie this week. I know it's crazy that I've never seen it. I know it's a problem that I've missed it.
And it's the tone is so... The tone of this show is so influenced by movies like Heathers. The combination that we're literally talking about right now of the hilarity of Misty giving that speech at a sick baby shower after the day after they just ate their friend. Like, those levels of like silliness next to abject horror is very much the DNA of Heathers.
And I love it so much. And
this
funny.
Has been your ad for Heathers, by the way. And so we end up wrapping up the 96 timeline with the baby shower and Lottie handing Shauna the blanket that she's so carefully embroidered with the symbol. And again, we see Nat and Lottie kind of getting at each other here. Nat says, "Why would you do that?" He says, "I think he was using it as protection." And Nat's like, "He died."
Well, it's funny because for somebody who so far is as practical as Nat has seemed and as unwilling to buy into all of this, she's affected by Lottie's choice to use that symbol. I mean, I think it's more of like it's just a bad look, Lottie. Come on.
Yeah, and it's also just bad vibes. Like, I think that Nat is so tired of everybody really like choosing to believe this, other force out there.
Right.
And in this moment, we start to really see who's on which side of that, because Mari says like, "Oh, well, I trust Lottie," and Misty says, "So do I," and Akilah says, "Me too." And so it's kind of like we're seeing that happen. And somebody says, "She's not God, you guys." And you don't, I couldn't place whose voice that was.
It was Ty.
Was it definitely Ty? I saw her say it. Yeah. So Ty says she's not God, you guys. And Van says no one's saying she is.
And then, so I didn't catch, I went back and watched it a couple of times and I thought her voice was off screen. But either way, Van says no one's saying she is. And Ty's face there, she's like, "Oh, okay." Oh, so I guess we're just gonna, that's how we're, okay. She is like,
the two of them are, totally. And then Shauna's nose starts to bleed on the blanket.
Auspicious beginning to this baby's
and it's more dripping blood, which is happening a lot this episode.
Right.
Ty runs to help her, and this is when we start to hear the thumping on the roof. I love a bird plot. It's a weird thing. During the pandemic, I became one of those people that got real into birds, and I got real into birds. Yeah. So they hear the noise as they walk outside, and Mari says, "Did these guys just suicide on our roof?" But it's starlings. There's starlings everywhere, on the ground, on the roof. They all just drop dead.
It's such a cool shot. Because they're dark and everything is so snow covered, and they're just like, they're so stark against it. It looks so fucking cool. It's so eerie.
Yeah. And we get like the different girls kind of representing almost the different theories of the moment, because we've got Nat saying, "No, don't touch them. They might be diseased." Misty says, there's a lot of iron in the ground, so maybe it messed with their navigation, kind of like hinting at the mining ideas. And then Lottie says that they should gather its blessings. And then Shauna looks horrified at all of it and just walks back inside.
It's probably the move I would have made too.
Yeah. But Van is the first one to pick up a bird and bring it over to Lottie.
That's interesting. It's also when we're about to move into 2021, and so much of what we see Lottie doing is people collecting and tending and caring for her little community, and this is the first instance of that.
Right. They're basically placing them at her feet as an offering.
It's important to Lottie to be the center of things.
Totally. And I think we are going to see different girls kind of rotate through positions of power or take positions of power in these different like clans or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, they gather the birds. Lottie's like petting one of them. And then that is the end of 1996. The last shot is just pulling back through the window upstairs in the cabin, looking down at everybody collecting the dead birds. So do we want to talk a little bit about the birds before we move on?
Yeah, we can talk about the birds now.
Right? Yeah. I just feel like, so there's a couple of interesting things about starlings that I thought maybe we could just mention in passing.
Jody's Bird Corner.
Bird Corner. Yay. Okay. Starlings are really loud birds, but that's not what I was going to say.
Something I learned this week about them is that they can, I didn't know that they're one of the birds who can mimic human speech.
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched a video of one talking, and it looks so different coming out of just a bird-ass bird. Like a parrot or a cockatoo looks silly, and it makes sense that they can do tricks, but starling is just a bird.
Yeah, it's just a bird. Looks like a small crow with speckles on it.
Yeah.
They can also mimic car alarms and all sorts of other sounds. They can mimic other animals.
That's cool.
And human speech. They also travel in flocks, but more, they're usually referred to as swarms.
So
those,
scary.
Like, yeah. So those murmurations, have you seen pictures of like a murmuration of starlings where they're kind of like doing these elaborate almost dances in the air? They're really beautiful. Actually, there's huge social groups. Oh, I think the other interesting thing about the birds is just like the possible connection to other sort of lore and traditions, things like Edgar Allan Poe and the Telltale Heart, and just, I know they're not ravens, but there's all these other directions of symbolism that they could be taken.
Absolutely. I'm
just into birds.
That's going to be your claim to fame with this podcast now.
Oh, no.
Jody, famously into birds. Over at New Jersey is the World, you're famously from Bergen County. Here, famously into birds.
Famously into birds.
Something that I didn't know about starlings, and something that you might know better than I do about this. So if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. But
bird facts.
This scene is very foreboding and frightening if as far as you know, dozens of birds drop dead out of the sky. However, something I was reading is that because starlings fly so close together, and one wrong turn in that beautiful coordinated murmuration can result in a ton of very fast in-air collisions, and so a few dozen birds dying this way from time to time is possible. Obviously,
absolutely,
the timing of it is insane, and where and all of that, but that's another one of those things where it's like, if that's true, it's another one of those things where it's like, this show, like, these people are just overwhelmed with coincidence.
But it's definitely like, every now and then you see some news story where it's like 200 birds just randomly died in this one neighborhood, and you're like, oh good, the world's ending. But like it does happen. There's various reasons for it. Somebody I saw mentioned, like, if they are over a mine, which then can release methane gas, that could, spontaneously kill a bunch of birds. There's definitely explanations.
Birds have very tiny lungs.
Yes, and brains.
And hollow bones. Is that true? Do birds, I don't know. Or is that one of those things that I just grew up thinking was true?
I grew up thinking it as well. I don't know if it's true, though.
Do birds have teeth? Jesus, no, Google. Oh, fascinating. Wow. Okay, I'm really sorry. No, I'm not sorry, listeners. Bird
what are we learning?
Bird bones aren't just hollow. They're pneumatized. They're full of spaces for air. As a baby bird grows, the air sacs that make up its lungs invade its bones, forming a bunch of tiny hollows. The air sacs stay attached to these hollows for a bird's life. This, along with a forward and backward arrangement of air sacs, helps give birds a little-known superpower. They can take in oxygen while both inhaling and exhaling.
Whoa.
That is fascinating.
Birds are cool.
Birds are so cool. So,
did you know crows mourn their dead?
I did know that. Crows...
They have funerals.
All I want is for the crows in my neighborhood to love me, Shout out to Ashley Hamer at discovery.com for this article. I'll link to it because I'm continuing to read it, and it's fascinating. Birds' bones are hollow, but not because it makes them lighter. It's so they can take in more air. Fascinating.
Huh. Okay.
Wow.
I would just like to shout out someone on Reddit named Salamanda, who says, I hope it's a nod to the Telltale Heart. The birds were not ravens, but it got me thinking about the dripping sound. There's also the old ghost story about moving into a new home, hearing dripping, and finding a dead body inside of a wall.
Oh my God. Wait, listeners, behind the scenes peek. I edited out something earlier because it didn't go anywhere, where I said the dripping thing reminded me of those like 90s urban legends. And then I was like, well, this episode's going to be 5 hours if I talk about that. But that's exactly what I was thinking of. That and the story about the kids, the kids who are hiding from, they're like at a makeout point and they're hiding from somebody with a hook hand who's just been released, whatever. And they hear scraping on their roof and they think it's him. And then they find out it's a body, like that somebody has killed somebody and strung them up over the roof of their car. It's all foreboding. Oh, yes. I love when, shout out Reddit Salamanda.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah. The bringing up the Telltale Heart I thought was great. A great little mention. And also because we still don't know where Javi is.
Yeah.
So anyway, total tangent, but lots of ways that can go. So that's where we end in 96. And then in 2021, I think we're going to go by group of people instead of in the actual order it happened, just because there's a lot of bouncing around. So let's start with Shauna and Jeff. They're in a diner, and the first thing we hear is Jeff say, "It was the strawberry lube," and a waitress turns around on her heel and walks away.
Which, it's a Jersey diner, but I've never had a server at a Jersey diner balk at anything my group was talking about. But fine, but okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so the conversation we're seeing is Jeff kind of blaming his boringness for Shauna's affair, which is sad, Jeff.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is where we get the fun comment that, the strawberry lube was a gag gift, and apparently Jeff said that this stuff is for bisexuals and goths.
Whenever anybody asks me what Yellowjackets is about, I'm just sending them that screenshot from now on.
Yeah, exactly. It's for bisexuals and goths. Mm-hmm. He says, "I could have gone strawberry. I almost did."
He almost went strawberry.
Oh. It's like he seems to be feeling very down on himself as a partner at this moment, and is very much trying to rise to Shauna's level of chaos, which I don't know that's the best move.
No, but... and he's obviously ill-equipped to do so.
Yes.
He really breaks my heart that, there are a couple of things going on here. It breaks my heart that he thinks it's his fault that Shauna cheated on him. That's, but then by extension, if we're thinking with Jeff's brain, heaven help us, it's his fault that Shauna cheated on him, and by extension, it's his fault that she killed Adam, right? And we see him when he finds out that she killed him. He's ready to take the fall for it back in season 1.
Yeah.
And it also, because it's like he knows his wife murdered somebody, and he's obviously not okay with it, but he's dealing with it. And it seems like part of that maybe comes from, or maybe that explains part of why he's trying to blame himself for it, so that he doesn't have to deal with his wife being a murderer.
Right. Well, I think, when we ended last season, we kept, when we recapped last season, we talked a lot about how Jeff is just game. Like he's going with everything. He's just a wife guy. He ride or die for Shauna. I kind of feel like this season we're seeing him take a step back and look at this and be like, this is pretty fucked up. It's not that he's necessarily like, I'm going to leave or I don't want to be with her, but I just noticed, especially in the last couple of episodes, him looking at Shauna, like the experience in Adam's studio, and now what we're about to talk about with the carjacking, right. He's looking at Shauna with these eyes of like, what are you actually capable of? Because it seems like a lot.
Right. And I think up until this little shift that we're noticing, my guess is he's thought that Shauna got into a situation that she couldn't, that she wasn't prepared to handle. And because of that, somebody ended up dead, as opposed to Shauna.
She's seeking out these chaotic, dangerous situations.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then we see them in the minivan, apparently, I think after leaving the diner, and he decides to try to be spontaneous. Makes a surprise turn. Says, "I'm taking us to Colonial Williamsburg. You ever churned butter?"
You ever churned butter?
Yeah. It's so funny.
Again, this is another thing where it's if all you're looking for are plot points, maybe not a whole lot happened in this episode, but this little back and forth is huge, because it's Jeff's idea of spontaneity. The first thing he could think of is Colonial Williamsburg, but it's that, and then it's also the most spontaneous thing Jeff can think of is Colonial Williamsburg. He asks her if she's ever churned butter, and it's sort of in a way where he's like, we're gonna do this new thing. She's been there, done that, bud.
In first grade.
Not in first grade. You're so behind.
Yeah.
It really breaks my heart.
Yeah. And then because he's distracted with his new idea, they almost hit a guy. So they stop. And it's a carjacking.
Of course. Again, North Jersey, I thought y'all were trained to spot shit like this.
I mean, they were distracted.
That's fair.
So the guy pulls a gun, asks for the keys. Jeff is like absolutely immediately compliant, hands over the keys. Shauna's like absolutely not. Grabs the gun. and then Jeff tries to get it back from her. He's like, "What are you doing?"
There are a lot of things again happening here. First of all, you know who I think that person with the gun is?
Who?
That's Javi. I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. I'm so kidding. Every young man is Javi.
It's Adam. He's not dead.
But it's, first of all, Jeff was right in the first place. Somebody with a gun tries to steal your van. Let them take it. But then it's also like, Jeff, Shauna's got the gun. You both know that if either of you should be wielding a gun, I mean, neither of you should be for different reasons.
Yeah. He has the logical reaction in the moment, which is the van is not important. Let's not get shot.
Well, her purse is in there also.
Mr. Schwoozums.
And some new cross trainers she just bought.
Yeah. But so he steals the van. Shauna keeps the gun. So then we go to Jeff lifting at the gym with his wife, I still can't say it right. His high school baseball sweatshirt with the sleeves cut off. And Kevin Tan with his backwards hat on. And he goes over to confront Kevin and says that he upset Shauna.
Again, wife guy. Just leave it alone, man.
Though.
Just leave it alone. But he's doing what he thinks he's supposed to do as her husband.
Yeah. And then he realizes he kind of stepped in. And he's like, oh, no, she wasn't upset. But like, yeah. So they get all blustery. He also says here, we've been married for almost 25 years. Which I noticed, which would imply they got married very quickly after they got back from the wilderness.
Right. Which I think we kind of figured they got back. Shauna got back. They bought that, like, got married and bought that house, and have just been living that life ever since.
Yeah, but I'm interested. Like, how do you go from 19 months in the wilderness, come home, your best friend, who you ate, was dating Jeff before you left, you come home, you were sleeping with Jeff, you had his baby, the baby probably died, and you marry him immediately. There's a lot of I have a lot of difficulty imagining that scenario.
Well, I think it's, I don't know that I think this. I don't know that I believe that if you ask Shauna this is what she would say. But it feels to me like Shauna is punishing herself for all of her crimes against Jackie, which start with having sex with her boyfriend in high school and end with eating her in the wilderness, by living Jackie's life for her. And even though that's not the life Jackie would have lived herself, but again, Shauna's so stuck that it's just like penance kind of.
I just keep thinking what are those 6 months like when they get back?
Yeah.
I just really want to see it.
I'm really interested in how Shauna deals in general when she gets back, because I think we know Ty deals by trying to jump right back in and pretend like it didn't happen and go full steam ahead with her original plan.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see how they all deal. I'm sure Misty's fine.
Oh, yeah.
But Shauna wants her car back. So she takes a Lyft or an Uber to the junkyard, which I feel like this looks like what people think Jersey looks like.
Oh, yeah.
This industrial area.
This is what I think North Jersey looks like.
Junkyards. This is not what North Jersey looks like. So she walks into this like chop shop with her gun out like she's in a freaking, I don't know, action movie.
Yeah.
When she walks in, the guy in the office is on the phone, and we hear him say, "I love sleeping over, but your cat is disgusting." That's a great little line.
This is like somebody walked off the set. It's like there was a scene in Sopranos and the camera just kept rolling over here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the one camera followed Tony, and that's the show we got. And then this guy, he's got like a gold chain and a leather jacket that he's wearing inside.
Yeah.
Is he wearing a leather jacket, or is it just the spirit of?
I couldn't tell you, actually.
He's at least wearing one in spirit.
He notices she's holding the gun on him and demanding her van back. And he comments that her hand is shaking. Mm-hmm. And this is where we see Shauna is not afraid.
No.
Shauna's excited.
Yeah.
Shauna's like kind of turned on.
Yeah, you see her.
She's like wound up.
Well, I think wound up is a perfect way to. You see her, because when you're first watching it, her hand's shaking. She seems a little anxious about it. I kind of was on his where I was like, she doesn't know. But then you see her when he calls her out and says she's scared. You see her decide to lean into her darker urges.
Yeah.
Like something shifts in her there.
Well, I think the reason that even we, knowing Shauna as a character at this point, at the beginning, also feel like maybe she's a little nervous or scared is just because of what Melanie Lynskey looks like. She looks like a mom.
Yeah.
Like a pretty beautiful, mom, but she looks like a housewife, especially the way she's styled in this show. And so, he's seeing what we see. And even though we know Shauna, we're also kind of, for the moment, fooled by her demeanor most of the time. Her like, haha, like, everything's fine. Saying gosh when confronted.
Yeah. It'll be interesting as that stuff falls away to see how much of that, because that's not what Shauna was like. It's not like Nat in 2021 makes sense when you meet Nat in 96. Lottie in they all make sense. Shauna, the Shauna that we meet in 2021 on the outside, the Shauna that Jeff thinks he knows, the Shauna that this man thinks he's seeing, is not a direct extension of the Shauna we meet in 96 at all.
No, it's Shauna putting on an act, probably for decades.
Right.
Like who she has decided this role she's decided to play.
Right.
We get her incredible speech here. Have you ever peeled the skin off a human corpse? People are so sweaty when you kill them.
Just like oily.
Yeah. Oh God. That was rough. You can see his face go from, this lady's nuts, to, I want her to leave immediately. I don't know what she's about to do, but I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if she's really going to kill me or not, but either way, like I'm not willing to risk it.
Yeah. And he's like, just take the keys. And you can see her like trying to stop herself almost.
Yeah.
From just killing him for fun. Like she's trying to get a hold of herself again.
And I bet, because so far, I mean, we know Kevin's on her tail and all of that, but like, as far as she knows right now, she's getting away with what she's done so far. And so it makes sense that her impulse control here might be a little lowered, but she gathers herself back up. And not only does she kind of shake that off, but you also see her slide back into that housewife of the
she goes back to sweet mom mode.
Yeah.
She gets in the car, she like shakes herself off, and then she goes home and gives Callie the stuffed animal.
Mr. Schwoozums.
Yeah. While she's sleeping. But that's pretty much all we see of Jeff and Shauna. Not that that's nothing. That's actually a lot in a short period of time. Should we talk about Misty?
Yes. I always want to talk about Misty and Walter.
We got Veruca Salt.
It
wasn't Volcano Girls, but I was still so excited.
But it's all right. Seether, I think, maybe makes a little more. I think in my head, Volcano Girls has been. I was picturing Volcano Girls in 1996.
Yes.
Like that
definitely
makes the most sense. Seether is a great song for these girls who are capable of so much more than anybody thinks they are, who have done these really dark things in their past, who are all ready to snap at a moment's notice, all of them. So Seether totally fits here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I loved it. I got really excited. Yeah. The music cues in this one were really good too. So Misty is at a marina. She's going to see Walter on his houseboat called Great Expectations. So we get a little bit of interaction between the two of them. He says like that the witness that they're going to interview is on their way. And of course, it's
Jody,
Randy.
You called it. You called that shit last week.
I called it, but I'm not the only one.
Well, still.
A number of people, I think, figured that out. But yeah, it's Randy. Happy to see him again. Apparently still living in the motel. Poor guy. He's still wearing his wedding ring. I noticed that.
Nice.
He hasn't given up.
There you go. Good for you, Randy.
And so when she sees that it's Randy and says, oh my God, I've known him since I was a kid, they decide to, as Misty says, Cyrano it. It was very silly, this whole scene. But I appreciated it.
Yeah, and it's so obvious, like, it's just these two people who have no business being detectives. Like, this is where listening to too much true crime will get you.
Yeah. And it seems also here that Walter has money. There's a few things where he's hinted about that. He says later on when he's talking about not his mother,
Svetlana,
because he has cash to pay for her to just go to a nursing home.
Which you and I both know. I was just going to say, that is
Jesus Christ,
so expensive.
That's
what
very
do you
expensive.
mean you have the cash?
Yeah,
like that's
an insane amount of money.
He also, I want to just one little note here. He says like he lives on a houseboat because he hates the red tape and or the bureaucratic whatever, and you never know when you're going to have to leave the country without a passport. Mm-hmm. Walter has never had to leave the country without a passport. He's cosplaying somebody.
He totally is. They both are.
Yeah.
They both are. They're both cosplaying somebody who is important and has, I don't know, people coming after them.
Right, exactly.
But so Walter's trying to interrogate Randy. It's not difficult.
Randy gives it up
so fast.
He's like, could you be covering for somebody? Oh, you mean like Jeff? And the way they just
went right past it.
Misty, the thing is, Misty knows Shauna's husband's name is Jeff.
Yeah.
Although,
but I don't think this just doesn't seem to register at all. Right, she's so focused on figuring out what's going on with Nat.
Exactly.
Yeah. But she gets real mad because he says that Natalie was probably doing drugs. And Misty's like, hit him. I love it when Walter leaves and he says, forgive me, I have IBS. Has to go talk to
God,
Misty.
is there anybody who could get away with that line being charming other than Elijah Wood?
He says it in such a cute way.
Yeah, exactly. God, I love him so. The two of them,
oh, they're delightful together.
It makes me so happy to see the two of them together.
Yeah.
There is that line which we've seen previewed where she says he's hiding something and Walter says everybody's hiding something.
Right. Yeah. We also find out that Randy once made Joe Fazio eat a frog during recess.
Another great Jersey named Joe Fazio.
Yeah. I will say, I know a lot of very irresponsible grown-ups with children, that would have definitely made someone eat a frog as a child.
Oh, yeah.
But so, he does hit him.
Yeah.
I was like, Walter, Randy's huge.
I know.
But he's so docile.
He's so docile. He is such a whiner. Randy.
Oh my God.
Such a whiner. That's like a choice that I have to imagine the actor chose. Like, I guess it could say like whiny or whatever but it's such a funny choice to play him like such a little whiny baby.
I know. Like his voice just keeps getting higher and higher. It's like, I'm answering your questions.
Exactly.
There's no need for violence. It's so
he's
funny.
Right.
I know. It's so funny though. But we finally find out that there was a group of people in purple hanging around a van. Mm-hmm. And they drank all the Fanta out of the soda machine.
Mm-hmm. I did call them dicks for drinking all of the Fanta.
Yeah. And freaking Walter is threatening him with a Dremel.
It's okay.
It's a Dremel.
Is it a Dremel?
It's a Dremel. I have one.
Okay.
You cannot hurt someone with that thing.
I wasn't sure if the joke of it,
you could like lightly scratch them.
It's like what you use to trim a dog's nails who doesn't like clippers.
Exactly.
I wasn't sure if the joke of it was that or was why does Walter have something like that on hand? Have a quote unquote like weapon saw.
I have a Dremel. You can use it for lots of things. You can sand little tiny places with it. People that make models
it's for his
have
miniatures.
Dremels.
Yeah, as soon as you said that.
Exactly.
It's not a surgical saw. It's a Dremel and it's for his miniatures.
Exactly. Yes.
Unless Walter's really saying everybody's hiding something means there's more to Walter than we think.
Oh, there's definitely more to Walter than we think. I also just think that you can't hurt someone very easily with a Dremel.
Right.
It's a silly thing to threaten someone with. But then, so he lets Randy go. And they're talking later on. Suddenly it's nighttime, which I thought was weird. But he says something that reminds Misty about the Fanta conversation, and she has the smart idea that they could probably pull the credit card records if someone used it. But this is where she lies to him about why she's downvoting his posts about Adam. And this is where I'm like, he knows more than he's saying. He doesn't look like he believes her.
No, I don't think he believes her. I go back and forth, though. This is another example of, is this another Adam situation where we start speculating about some guy because why else would he be here if he didn't have something, in a show like this, blah, blah, blah. And then...
Right. But maybe he's just an admirer of Misty. Although he knows she's a Yellowjacket because we see that in the preview for next week.
Good. It was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
She's like 25.
Yeah, 25. Yeah. But then this is also where we get, maybe I'm just a bored Moriarty looking for his Sherlock. They're adversaries.
Yeah, big time.
So he's looking for someone to hunt. Wait, maybe I'm just a bored Moriarty looking for his Sherlock. So he's looking for someone to hunt him.
Right, because he pictures
him
himself as this like brilliant mastermind, and he's looking for someone who could figure him out, not like, because he doesn't say like the like quote unquote cute thing would be like Sherlock looking for my Watson or whatever, right? But he doesn't say that because he really likes this.
He wants an adversary.
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah. So then last thing we see with them is she's at home and gets a text from Walter saying that the credit card is from Cherry Corners, New York. And I would just like to point out that she has a book on her desk called Parenting.
Of course.
Which she's a very responsible bird mom.
She takes it very seriously, exactly.
Yeah. She's also wearing that cat sweatshirt that I really want.
That sweatshirt is perfect, and I love that she still has it. And yeah.
So, but this then validates what I thought was the case, which is that the cult is in upstate New York. Because Cherry Corner sounds I don't think it's a real place, but it sounds very Hudson Valley.
Right.
Or Adirondacks. Those are the two areas I think that would make sense. Either the Catskills, because we've seen mountains and lakes in upstate New York. Catskills and Adirondacks would be the two places that would make sense to be. So it seems like next week they're going to be traveling up to Cherry Corners, which will be fun. Little road trip.
Well, everybody's making their way there, right?
Yeah, they're all going to converge. So yeah, that is the end of Misty and Walter for the week. Ooh, Ty.
We get very little Ty this week, but it's
intense, though.
Significant, yeah. We get one hospital visit.
Yeah, so we pick up right after the accident. Ty is in the room with Simone, sort of half hallucinating, half communicating with a nurse who says, "We're not out of the woods yet."
Yep, we're not out of the woods yet.
And Ty has drawn the symbol on Simone's hand.
Appears that other Ty has, because Ty clearly doesn't remember doing that, and she's horrified in the first, that she would have done that. Yeah, we're not out of the woods. Yeah, girl, we know. None of us are.
No, not out of the woods. Then we see her in the hospital, what I assume is the hospital bathroom, taking Adderall. Again.
Trying to stay up.
Not the best idea.
No.
But then we get the mirror scene again.
Ooh, I love a spooky mirror.
You do love a spooky mirror.
I really do. It just like it always works for me. She spins around and her reflection does not.
And she's mouthing something, which I think the Reddit detectives have figured out is probably "go to her."
I think so.
Referencing Van.
I thought it said what I was reading it as, and I knew it didn't make I couldn't find context for it to make it make sense. But it looked to me like "don't shoot her" until you suggested "go to her," and I was like, "Oh, obviously."
Which I got from Reddit. I couldn't figure that out either.
Especially because she follows up with, "I love something like she does." What scared the shit out of me, where she really weirdly places her hands over her face. Yeah. And I was horrified. And then I realized, that's Van, right?
Van's mask,
that's her. Oh, I was thinking her bandages.
Oh, it could be either the bandages and the scarring, or it looked kind of like the mask from Doomcoming that Ty made for her.
Okay, I don't remember off the top of my head what the mask looked like. But either way.
Either way, it's the same thing. Yeah.
But it is It is such a weird, spooky thing to do.
Yeah. But she looks really scared.
Yeah.
Our version of Ty.
Mm-hmm.
So she leaves and runs into her campaign manager in the ICU lobby and decides to take her car.
I know your campaign manager is there to manage your campaign and like do what you need.
I think it's her chief of staff at this point. Okay. She's elected.
Either way, you can't just make somebody give you their car.
I know.
But she does.
Ty can.
Yeah. She does.
And says her tox report was clean except for Adderall, but the cops want to get her running the red light.
Ty does not care.
No, not at all. So she grabs the keys and starts to call Jessica Roberts. And next week, we get Lauren Ambrose.
I can't wait.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait to cry when the two of them see each other for the first time.
I just, as someone, we've talked about this, but as someone who was obsessed with 6 Feet Under, and especially Claire, Lauren Ambrose's character, who is a photographer, I'm like so excited to see her again. I can't wait. So shall we wrap up with the main event of this week, Nat and Lottie?
Woo!
Yeah, there was a lot going on here. Mm-hmm. Also a lot of sort of fun moments as well, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Again, it's two people who have known each other for a very long time. And clearly, I think even through all of this, as fucked up as they both are right now, you could tell they both love each other.
There's some affection there for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's no trust whatsoever.
No, understandably so.
Yeah. But there's some history and affection there for sure. Nat is sort of sneaking around the campus.
I know I've talked about it every week.
Her physicality is so good.
It's so funny. It's such an odd choice. It's not an odd choice. It's such a unique and specific choice. Yeah. I don't really understand what she's doing, but I love it. So I could just watch her walk around.
She's like
for
skulking.
An hour. Yeah.
She's like peeking in windows.
It's like weirdly flamboyant. It's very fun to see this little intruder even though she's stuck there. It's not by her choice, but she's like a fun little interloper right now.
It's hilarious. She's like skulking around, peeking through windows, watching Lottie like do treatments with people. And she's like kind of wandering around, and she runs into Lisa, whose name we now know, holding a chicken. It was not long for this world.
She's outside of Lottie's cabin. Charlotte's cabin, excuse me.
Yes, she's outside of Charlotte's cabin.
Which, of course, has antlers over top.
Of course. We see this really interesting interaction between Nat and Lisa, where, like, they're both kind of posturing, but I feel like the only one that has any real gravitas there is Nat.
Of course.
Like, Lisa's trying to look tough and like cutting off the chicken's head, and Nat's like, you probably shouldn't swing an axe like that. You're gonna hurt yourself. We also see after she kills the chicken, there's like blood on this like mossy stump next to her. This is what I mean about the dripping thing. So the blood's dripping off the mossy tree, and then that flips to the next scene of back in the hospital, like Simone's blood transfusion.
Oh, right.
We just keep seeing these things like connecting back to the idea of dripping blood.
Il Verde song.
So Nat's looking at the chore schedule and the things you can sign up for, and Lot says she should sign up for something.
Things like water and weed the food forest.
Yes. Clean the massage stones, which sounds disgusting. This is another moment where her physicality is incredible. Lottie's like, come on. And like the way that Nat walks behind her, she's got like a silly walk going on.
Yeah. It's like so petulant. Good. She's like being like...
She's being a child.
Yeah. It's like this is what I was going to cut out earlier. There's a scene in Robin Hood Men in Tights, and he's like, walk this way. And he like swishes, and then they follow behind him. She's doing that walk.
She is. I know. I loved it.
And she's got that flowy shirt on. She's just so...
She's wearing the same clothes she's been wearing for days.
She's not putting that fucking purple on, okay?
Nope. She refuses. But so then Lottie walks them over to the hives, and this is where we hear her speech about Yellowjackets or bees.
Right, and it is so on the nose. They all vibrate to keep her warm.
Yes.
How thoughtful.
And she says when a new queen hatches, the first thing she does is sting all the other unborn queens to death. Nat says, I can see why you like them. And Lottie says, it isn't brutal, it's natural. It's simply what has to be done. Otherwise, they starve. We all do.
It is a false dichotomy. Nature can and often is brutal.
Yes. And natural.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then when we come back to them, the cult members are all sitting in a circle. 2 of them are in the center, hugging, and everyone claps.
Nat is sitting like a toddler who has just finished throwing the biggest tantrum, and she's got that purple shawl that Lottie just threw over her shoulders when she sat down.
She's sitting perpendicular to the yoga mat.
It's like she just plopped down.
Yeah.
And like, fine.
Yeah.
So good.
I know. I love it. And so Lottie tries to get Natalie into the sharing circle or whatever it is that they're doing. And Lottie is very resistant. And so she brings up Lisa.
Nat is very resistant.
I'm sorry. Yes, Nat is very resistant. Lottie is not resistant.
No. No, but she does get up.
She does.
She does. I mean, like.
Yeah, she does. She's clearly humoring Lottie. Mm-hmm. I think maybe just because of their history. But
right.
She gets up, but she refuses to participate in any meaningful way. And so then Lottie brings up Lisa. And this was some manipulative shit. This is
this is gross.
I still haven't watched the Teal Swan documentary, and I really need to, but
this is textbook cult behavior. I haven't watched that either, but I think I told you I listen to the podcast and I am cult obsessed. This is textbook. This is like
kind of pitting them against each other. She like encourages Lisa to basically grab the fork and like stab Natalie back.
Which I didn't notice the first time through. That fork has a bent tine.
Yes.
Which means it's the same Lottie.
It's
that fucking fork.
Yeah.
So unnecessary.
Yes. I know. It's pretty sick, actually.
These people and their symbols, my God.
I know. But instead of stabbing her, she hugs her and says, I understand and I forgive you. Which is very sweet. I'm worried about Lisa.
I'm really worried about Lisa. Last week I said wilderness baby. I actually don't know if I did. Did I say that on the pod? I did.
I think so.
I don't think she's wilderness baby anymore.
I don't either.
I think most of these people on this show who like seem mysterious or that we are trying to put more into is totally us reading them as such because we want so badly to, which is funny. We're all trying to make meaning out of this situation they had that's beyond them that maybe isn't.
I mean, to be fair, I think the reason all this started is partly because they, people researched this actress and found out that she is 25.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh my God, 25 years old. And I also saw some speculation that it's actually Nat's daughter that Nat doesn't know, that like gave up for adoption or something. I don't know. There's a lot of bending over backwards to try to put things into different possibilities, which not impossible, but.
That seems very soap opera-y. Although I wouldn't, if we find out that Nat gets pregnant and puts a baby up for adoption, it would not surprise me that Lottie would go to like extremes to orchestrate their reunion just for her own like weird, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like God
I really
complex.
like this actress too.
Yeah, she's
I like
great.
her facial acting work is great in this scene. You can see her, she's like afraid of Natalie, but she's also sort of like processing that fear and trying to be brave and also trying to be understanding and
also just flat out annoyed though because like, I tried to save your life and then you stabbed me with a fork. Like what the fuck?
Yeah. No, I like her in this scene a lot.
Mm-hmm. Oh right, then Lottie goes back out to the hive. All of the bees are dead, which is an interesting parallel to what we've seen with all of the dead birds. Anytime a swarm of anything dies.
Well, and so I think it's interesting because normally in real life when that happens, it is always some sort of environmental contagion, contamination, human presence, situation, pollution, whatever. And we talked at the beginning of this season about how if this is some sort of like environmental disaster that's causing all of this, it's like kind of fitting that it's a bunch of girls from Jersey.
Yeah, exactly.
But turns out what Lottie is seeing is not actually there. She's seeing blood on the hive. She's seeing blood on her own hands. But then we see her put her hands up to her head and there's no blood on them.
Right.
So we know she's hallucinating. But the blood when she Yeah, she's not okay.
devastated in this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Good for us and for the universe that this is a hallucination, because I don't know what if not, but it is either way. She is. I mean, this really wrecks her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talked last week about how we feel like the reason she didn't tell Nat about what happened with the vision with Laura Lee is because she's trying to pretend she's okay, and none of this is really still affecting her.
Right.
That she's not having visions and hallucinations and stuff.
And it's telling too that it's not, she hallucinates these dead bees and the blood, and then also she hears one of the, which the captions refer to them as acolytes.
Yeah.
She hears one of her acolytes, she thinks, say Il Ver de Sang. So it's that same,
Yeah.
So I think in her head she thinks that
what she's actually saying is like, are you coming to lunch?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, she looks absolutely terrified in this scene. And again, the blood is dripping everywhere from the hive. This is coming back.
Yeah.
The dripping. Thing with Mari. I'm fixated on it right now. I'm like, something's dripping in the walls of the house or in the basement or in the hatch underneath the porch or something. So.
Well, and Lottie in the past, at least, believed that when it asked for blood and they provided blood, things got better, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wonder what that's going to mean for her.
Yeah.
In 2021.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this leads into the preview for next week, which we can talk about a little bit. There's a few things that we knew were coming, and a few things I think that are new. And so, speaking of Lottie, we see her kind of speaking to someone about this and saying, I started having visions and they need to stop. We see the Queen of Hearts again. The deck of cards is coming back soon, I think. And we also see Walter and Misty on their road trip, which is...
I love that she's going to bring Walter into that mess. This poor guy, he does not know. Like,
maybe he does.
Yeah. This show's so good. It depends on when you catch me what I think is going on, because Walter, he's another one who could be anything, and I would buy it if they give me a good enough reason.
You hear Callie saying, I'm so fucking over secrets. Bunch of different flashes of like Nat watching Lottie in what looks like a mall. We've seen a version of this before, but wearing her like woods clothing. Do
we think that's going to end up being a hallucination? Yeah,
I do. I mean, who knows? But
I think her in the mall. It's even shot. It's like, it's a very quick shot, but it looks kind of like fisheye lens.
Yeah, it also looks like The Last of Us, which I still need you to watch.
Oh yeah,
it looks like a scene from The Last of Us.
But we get a shot of her going into like down the hatch, which doesn't. It shot very differently. That looks to me much more real, but who knows?
I hope it's real. I feel like
ready for a hatch.
I know we've seen so many hints of this underground situation. All of these flashes of Lottie in like an underground tunnel with candles, and I've just been waiting for them to find something like this. So I hope it's real. But that's also just me being more of a rationalist and still wanting more rational explanations for things. We also see what looks like Nat looking through ice and then Travis pulling her out of the ice. I think we're finally probably going to see why she falls through the ice at some point.
Right.
And then we see Ty show up at Van's little shop. We'll finally get our Lauren Ambrose. It only took till episode 4.
I like Simone, but
I like Simone too, but I feel like Simone is not a match for Ty, and Van is.
Do you think this is a show? Do you think there's a possibility they'll let Simone die?
I think that more significant people are going to die this season. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Simone dies, but I also feel like it's sort of like Simone is Ty's last tether to reality.
Yeah, that's true.
Like current reality. Like, we haven't seen anything of Ty's actual family.
No.
In 2021. Simone and Sammy are the only sort of quote unquote normal part of her life. And so, I don't know. I mean, where's Sammy when she's going to see Van? Who's got Sammy?
That's a really good question.
Was he just kind of hanging out in the house with the dog?
It's a Home Alone.
I hope it's a Home Alone. Mm-hmm. Just Sammy and Steve protecting the house.
This is my house. I have to protect it.
That's a spinoff I need.
Hell yeah.
So I don't know that I have any wild theories for next week. I'm just excited to see Ty and Van.
Yeah, that's what I'm most looking forward to.
And Walter and Missy's road trip.
Yep, absolutely.
I have to play something for you before we end. I know we have to actually have an ending.
Wild West City, a city running wild. I'm going to Wild West City, bring the missus and the child. Gonna wear my hat, twirl my gun, join the posse and have some fun at Wild West City, a city running wild. I'm going to Wild West City, a city running wild.
And then I'll also, if you want to watch this video, head over to our Twitter at WatchersPodNJ to see the whole thing in its stunning
The commercial is so great.
5-pixel glory.
Oh my God, I know.
So funny.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I love a local commercial.
Oh my God, so much.
And everyone that grew up in northern New Jersey knows that song.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's great. So that's our episode for the week.
We did it.
So yeah, in the meantime, follow our Instagram and our Twitter. Keep up with us.
At WatchersPodNJ.
Tell your friends.
Please.
Tell your enemies.
Yeah, especially tell your enemies.
Keep in touch with us and let us know your wild theories.
Yes, please. I would love that. I really would. I would love to hear what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah. And so we are WatchersPodNJ on Instagram and Twitter. I am Jodie, JODIE_MIM on Instagram and Twitter, even though all I do is repost WatchersPodNJ.
I'm at AQAndreaQ on Instagram and Twitter.
There you go. The Antler Queen herself. So, yeah, we will see you next week.
Bye.
See you in the woods.